Hey everyone. So, while I've been having a rough time for the last 3 weeks between a trip to Texas and my mom passing away, I neglected my sourdough starters. So 2 days ago, I started redoing it. So I am playing with it today, and so I'm only making a small loaf, a mini loaf, a half a loaf, whatever you want to call it, of sourdough. So I'm going to first start with my water. I need 205 grams of water. I need to zero out my scale. 205. There we go. Next, I'm going to use 79 grams of starter. So my starter's fairly active today, and I'm going to go to 79 grams. Like I said, it took me a couple days to get it back and up. See how it's floating? Oh my goodness, this is actually a really good starter. 78, just a little bit more. There we go. Now, I'm going to add some salt. I only need 8 grams of salt, so I'm going to be very careful adding it to, I'm at 4 actually, 6, give it a second, 8. So there we go, 8 grams of salt. I use kosher salt for my sourdough. And now I'm going to add 133 grams of whole wheat flour and 133 grams of unbleached white flour. And I use organic flours. So 133 grams for a total of 275 grams of flour. So I really only need to get one of these to about 133. There we go. It's actually 138, 136, because my scale goes by twos. So that's part of the, so now I'm going to just get it to 275. Now I'm mixing this in the morning, and I will be able to pull it here for a few hours. You want to pull it every half hour, 4 times. There we go. That's all the flour I needed. Now I'm going to simply just mix it together until it forms a shaggy ball. And then I'm going to set my timer, and every half hour I'm going to come and I'm going to pull it. And it's going to get smoother and smoother with each pull. But like I said, this is just a small loaf. I normally double this recipe to make a full-size loaf. But I don't need that large of a loaf right now, so I'm keeping it small. Once it's all mixed together, I like to scrape my bowl really good. Now I have to catch on my finger. I want all the bread I can get, so I scrape everything. Now, you see how shaggy that is? That's perfectly fine for the first round. I have a plastic cover, and now I'm going to set my timer for half an hour and come back and pull it in a little bit. So the timer just went off for the first half hour, and now I'm going to pull my saran wrap or shower cap off, and I'm going to stretch and fold. Now the first time looks a little messy, and that's okay. And I wet my hands before I even started doing this, and I kind of work with it for a little bit. Then I just kind of toss it back into the bowl in no uncertain order. Put my shower cap back on and let it sit for another half hour. So once again, I've wet my hands down, and I'm going to pull the bread, the dough. So you pull it because you want to get the gluten to break down and form into a gorgeous loaf. So I tend to work it differently than a lot of people. It doesn't really matter how you work it, as long as you work it. And then I put it back in, just kind of set it in there, put the lid back on, and another half hour. Wet hands, this is round 3, and you can see how it's starting to shape. And we're gonna pull, and pull. I find it's just easier to pull my hands, especially this small of a loaf. You can see it's starting to really form the gluten. And then put it back in, lid back on, one more time. This is the last pull that we'll be doing. So my hands are wet once again. Oh, I didn't even show that to you. Sorry, it looked so pretty. I pulled so quickly. But you can see it's starting to really develop its gluten, and we're gonna work the dough. This will be the final time. And then you see the difference between the first one and this one? Got such a pretty shine to it now, and it doesn't have ugly shagginess now. It's nice and firm and smooth. So now I'm just gonna set it in here. I'm going to put the plastic back over top, and we're gonna let it sit for 4 or 5 hours. Okay, so now the bread has got some bubbles in there. So it's done its job really well, actually. So we are going to get it, and we're gonna get it into the banneton and into a refrigerator, and it will sit for a couple hours to get cold, because I find that's when it's the best time to bake it. And like I said, this is a mini loaf, so it's gonna look really small in the banneton, but that's okay. I'm gonna stretch, and fold again. I'm gonna work the dough. Some people let it rest. Sourdough is super forgiving. You can do multiple ways and you'll still get a good loaf out of it. It's amazing. I don't want a lot of flour on this. So fold, 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 roll. And then I'm just gonna get it into a nice ball, shape it, and we're gonna just enjoy the baby noises in the background. That's my granddaughter. And then once we get that done, put a little bit of flour on top, throw it into the banneton, which I have prepped, ready to go. And then I'll put the linen cloth back on top and So it's first thing the next morning, and now I'm going to put the Dutch oven into the oven. I'm going to turn my oven on to 450. And I'm going to place the Dutch oven in my oven, and it will preheat with the oven. And then it has to heat for another 40 minutes after that. All right, so the oven timer just went off, and it's been 40 minutes that the Dutch oven's been in there, so it's nice and hot and ready to go. So I just pulled the linen top off of my bread cover, and this has been in the refrigerator since yesterday evening because I was very tired last night. So I'm simply going to flip it over, and this is a mini loaf. I will not need all this paper, so I'm actually going to rip it off. It doesn't have to be neat. I do use parchment paper for the mini loaves because of the size of the pan. Score your bread. You want to cut a line somehow so that it can have some place to expand, and you want to direct that. I like to do fancy score. You can do just a straight line, that's fine. I add some leaves, some vein marks in my leaves, and it just makes it so it looks pretty. You want a nice ear on this, so you want to make sure that scoring is deep on that big line. A lot of people just do a straight line, which is absolutely fine. So now I'm going to place it in my Dutch oven, and I'm going to put the lid back on in the oven and bake it for 30 minutes at 450 covered. So now I'm going to pull the Dutch oven out of the oven. It is hot at 450. I'm going to remove the lid, and I'm simply going to drop. You saw all the steam coming out of there. That's what you want. You want that hot steam. Drop that bread in there, put the lid back on, and put this back in the oven. Turn your timer on for 30 minutes and let it go. At the end of 30 minutes, we're going to go back over there. We're going to pull the lid off, and then we're going to leave it in the oven for another 15 minutes to bake out. So the 30-minute timer just went off. And now we're going to remove the lid. Ooh, look at that. It puffed up nice. That's going to nice rise to it. And now we're going to just close the oven back up without the lid on. Set the timer. I'm actually going to do 13 minutes, and then we'll pull the finished loaf out. So now we're going to cut into this wonderful, look at that. It's got some nice bounce to it. Small little loaf. It's about 6.5, 7 inches wide. And we're going to see what the crumb looks like on the inside. Ooh, it's got some big holes, so it was really active starter. It's probably not the best crumb because it's not super even, but I like the fact that it has all that texture, and when it pops back up. So that's a good crumb in there. So that's what it's like. That's what it is. That's a mini loaf. This is Sourdough with Kelly from Yellowknife Homestead. Have a great day.